Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we're going to be talking about Old Trafford and the stadium. It looks like plans for redeveloping Old Trafford and making it an academy stadium might not be happening now. We might just have a big new stadium. And this Old Trafford, this one here, the one we all love dearly, might be getting demolished. So let's get into it. Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside, and the weather here, I'm outside Old Trafford, I should say, and the weather here is, yeah, it's quite mild, it's quite sunny, but there's a little bit of a nip in the air. Make sure before you do anything, you are hitting like, share, and subscribe. We want to get to 800,000 subscribers by the end of the week, and with your support we can get there. A few stories to get through. The main focus today is the stadium. There's these reports this morning, we've seen it in the Daily Mail, we've seen it in the Express as well, that Manchester United's sort of plans for the new stadium have changed somewhat in terms of what we were expecting and what the reality is going to be. Now, there was talk earlier on in the summer and the end of last season that Manchester United, when we were looking at new stadium options, this task force that had been sort of appointed or announced, they were going to look at perhaps knocking down Old Trafford, not completely, but knocking it down from a 76,000 seater stadium to a 30,000 seater stadium, using that stadium as somewhere for the academy and the women's team, and then having a new stadium nearby here for Manchester United first team, having a new sort of 100,000 seater stadium or something like that. Now, it seems, according to these reports, that that plan has changed, and now there isn't going to be a way of keeping this stadium, the current one we've got, and knocking it down to 30,000. That seems like it's too much of an ask. It's basically going to cost too much, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. This is what the reports are saying. So the likelihood is that Old Trafford is going to be demolished. It's going to be gotten rid of, and then a new stadium comes in for the first team, and potentially another stadium as well for the academy and the women's team, a 15,000 seater stadium, a new one, rather than redeveloping or sort of knocking half of Old Trafford down or whatever to make it a 30,000 seater stadium for the women and the academy team. Now, the sort of idea was that it costs too much. Also, does that work? A 30,000 seater stadium, is the capacity too high? I'm not saying it is. These are the suggestions that we're seeing in the media this morning or in the report on why Manchester United or why INEOS aren't willing to sort of plough ahead with that idea of going forward with a 30,000 seater stadium based on what you've already got here with the Old Trafford structure. So it is a little bit disappointing, because I think that for me would have been a happy medium, a happy solution. I've always said I thought United need a new stadium. I'm not going to change my tune there, but I think the idea of keeping Old Trafford in some form and using that for the academy, or the women's team, and the women's team I should say, would have been a really good idea. However, it doesn't look like that is going to happen. Now, in terms of a new stadium, if United are going to have a new stadium, which it seems that is going to be the case, then I've said this many times over the years, and a few years ago I used to advocate for a new stadium, and a lot of people disagreed with me, and I understand that. However, it seems more recently more and more people are coming round to the idea that a new stadium might not be the worst idea in the world, because I think the main sort of argument against it is the history of Manchester United, the fact that this is the stadium where the Busby Babes played, where the likes of Best and Law and Brian Robson and Roy Keane, the class of '92, and Cristiano Ronaldo and all those players played at. I understand that argument. However, you've got to look at how feasible it is to keep rebuilding or revamping this stadium. It's structurally, it's questionable. You've got bits of concrete falling on people. There's the leaks in the roof. You're quite squashed. And also as well, let's not forget, this stadium isn't the same stadium that those players I mentioned, a lot of those players I mentioned, played on anyway. It's been revamped that many times. It's almost completely new. The pitch obviously isn't the same. That's been changed every season. So I also think the history comes with you. Things like the Munich clock, the statues, things like that, you can have that as part of the new stadium, and I think you should. Some elements as well, the Munich tunnel, try and rebuild that and take those elements into the new stadium too. I think you can take that history with you. New stadiums, where we see it at big clubs who've had new stadiums, I still think those clubs have their history. I don't think you lose all that. So I think you can have your cake and eat it, basically. You can have a new stadium, still keep your history, and have a stadium as well that is fit for purpose, because I don't think Old Trafford is. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let me know what you think. I know a lot of people are completely against the idea of demolishing Old Trafford. Even when you say those words, demolishing Old Trafford, it does leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. I get it. But I think if we are going to move forward and we are going to have a stadium that is fit for purpose, that is the biggest and best in the country, then I think a new stadium is the way to do that. And I would want to see a second stadium for the academy, for the women's team. I think that is a good idea. I think a club the size of Manchester United should have a stadium that is a designated stadium for the academy and for the women's team, and it shouldn't be in Leigh Sports Village. I mean, that's not even our stadium anyway, we just use it. but we should have a designated one. If we can have it on this site, fantastic, because obviously there's a lot of land here that is owned by the club, owned by INEOS, so I think they could demolish Old Trafford, build a new stadium and build a second stadium nearby. That would work for me. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's a good idea? I've heard several people who sort of advocate for a new stadium. I think Gary Neville was talking about it and saying, you know, you look at Spurs, I think most Spurs fans are happy with their new stadium. They don't look at it and go, oh, this is horrible, this is soulless or whatever. They might not be happy with the football that's being played there, but that's another story. So let me know what you think. I'm always curious to hear everyone's point of view, and it is one of those where I sort of don't disagree, or not disagree. I can see everyone's point of view. I can understand those people like, whoa, Jay, we cannot knock down Old Trafford. And obviously people like myself who say you can, and you can build a bigger and better stadium, and one where you don't have bits of concrete falling on people's heads. Let me know what you think. In other news as well, we've had an injury update. Rasmus Hojlund and Mason Mount back in training. It'd be good to see those two players return to the fold. Manchester United looking a little bit better over the last couple of weeks. We have to sort of caveat that. Caveat is the word of the day. If you saw mine and Stephen House's video, it was Southampton who are 19th and Barnsley who are in League One. So we can't get too carried away, but the performances and the results have obviously been better, and you can't moan too much at winning 7-0. Come on, and also 3-0 away from home in the Premier League. But it'd be good to have Rasmus Hojlund and Mason Mount back. I felt really sorry for Mason Mount. I felt sorry for both of them. Mason Mount had a very, very good 45 minutes against Brighton before he got injured. He's just not been able to get going at Manchester United. I think that was his best performance of the season. Well, of the season. Barely played this season. Probably his best performance in a United shirt came against Brighton, and then he gets taken off at half time because of an injury. Really frustrating. Be good to see him back and available. Be good to see Rasmus Hojlund available too, because he's had no luck as well. Started off pre-season really well, got a goal, and then in that pre-season game against Arsenal, he's injured and he misses the start of the season. And whilst he's out, Joshua Zirkzee comes in and does a very good job. So Rasmus Hojlund, when he is fit, he might have to fight for his place, but at least we'll have a bit of competition. The same with Mason Mount as well. He might have to fight for his place, but that's what you should have at a club of the size of Manchester United and a team that has aspirations of at least getting into the top 4 in the Premier League. You need players fighting for positions. You need different options. It's no good just having a starting 11 and that's it, especially when you look at how many injuries Manchester United get. We need options, and hopefully Mason Mount and Rasmus Hojlund coming back into the fold will give us the options we need. One final story I'm going to mention, and I don't usually do this, right? When pundits, people in the media, commentators, whatever, slag off United players, you'll always see these stories in the press, and I tend to ignore them because I think, you know what, it's just people trying to sell papers, it's people trying to get clicks. I'll leave all that to Stephen Housen for Housen Versus to lay into pundits and lay into sort of personalities who are having a go at players. And I think it's Simon Jordan recently having a go at Antony. Antony obviously scored a couple of goals against Barnsley and did really well. Now, I've criticised Antony. I've said I don't think he's good enough. I've said a lot of those things that Simon Jordan said. However, I always get defensive when I hear people that aren't Manchester United fans or aren't associated with Manchester United having a go at our players. So why don't you just shut up, right? If you can have a go at Antony, fair enough, if he's had a bad game, whatever. But when he's actually had a decent game, albeit against League One, when he's played well, seems like a bit of a strange one starting to go at him. And listen, he might be not very good, but he's our not very good. So it'll be up to United fans whether what criticise him or not you lot, yeah? So just stay out of it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. There's a compliment somewhere there, Antony. Prove me wrong, it's what I always say to you. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to be back later on with Off the Bar, so make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. I'm Jay Motti. This has been a Paper Talk outside a pretty cold Old Trafford. Thanks for watching.